Welcome to Quick Speak, the English podcast.
Hello, everyone.
Today we're talking about something quite deep. It's that feeling many of us get sometimes. The feeling that, well, this isn't the life I wanted.
It's a really common human experience, actually. Not always easy to talk about, but lots of people feel it.
Exactly. And it can pop up at, any time in life. Maybe after a big change or sometimes just quietly when you're thinking.
Right. So today we're going to explore this feeling. We'll look at it from different angles: history, philosophy, psychology, trying to understand it better.
And we'll do this slowly and clearly to help all you English learners follow along easily. Okay, so first off, is this feeling new? Is it like a modern problem?
That's a great question. And the answer is, well, definitely not. This feeling, it's been around for a very, very long time.
Really? Like how far back are we talking?
Oh, ancient times. Think about ancient Greece. Philosophers there were already talking about the good life. They called it eudaimonia, like human flourishing.
Oh.
But, the very fact they were defining a good life kind of implies they knew many people felt their lives, well, weren't quite hitting that mark. They felt something was missing.
Ah, I see. So the ideal highlights the lack, in a way.
Precisely. And look at the Stoics, philosophers like Epictetus. A big part of their teaching was about controlling your inner thoughts and reactions. Why? Well, partly because you often can't control what happens outside. Life often doesn't go the way you planned or wanted.
So they were already teaching coping mechanisms for this feeling, essentially.
You could say that, yeah. And it's not just philosophy. Even think about medieval times. We have writings from monks, in monasteries. And they wrote about feelings of, well, disappointment, maybe a kind of spiritual dryness, or wishing their life felt different, more fulfilling, closer to what they'd hoped for when they started.
Wow. Even in that dedicated, structured life.
Exactly. And even older texts. The story of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest stories we have. He achieves so much, he has power, everything, but still feels this deep emptiness. That's thousands of years ago. And it's right there, the feeling that external success doesn't automatically mean internal satisfaction.
So it's not just about, not getting the promotion you wanted. It's deeper.
Much deeper. Then jump forward a bit. The Enlightenment. Thinkers like Rousseau started looking at society itself. He argued that society, civilization, wanting material things, it actually makes people unhappy. It pulls them away from their sort of true nature.
So society itself could be the source of feeling your life isn't right.
That was his argument, yeah.
Yeah.
That the structure of society can create this mismatch. And you see that theme again, maybe even stronger, in the Romantic movement in the 19th century.
Well, poets and artists.
Right. They wrote a lot about feeling disconnected from nature, from society, from their own imagined ideals. This sense that the life they were living just wasn't the vibrant, meaningful life they envisioned, it's all over their work.
So the takeaway from history is, this feeling is persistent. It's not new. It just maybe changes its shape depending on the times.
Exactly. The core feeling of questioning your path, wondering if this is it. That seems remarkably consistent throughout human history.
Okay, that's a really important baseline. Now, how did philosophers, especially maybe in the 20th century, think about this? Did they see it differently?
Oh, definitely. For existentialist philosophers, people like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, this feeling wasn't just common, it was central to being human.
Central. How so?
Well, take Kierkegaard. He talked about anxiety. But not just being scared of something specific, it's the anxiety that comes from realizing you have freedom, you have choices.
Okay, but freedom is good.
Yes, but Kierkegaard saw the flip side. Every time you choose one path, you're not choosing countless other possible paths, other possible lives you could have lived.
The what ifs.
Exactly. That awareness of all the possibilities you didn't choose, the lives you didn't live. That's where the angst comes from. And it can easily lead to feeling like the life you did choose isn't quite right because you're always aware of those other roads.
So the freedom to choose creates the burden of wondering if you chose wrong.
In a sense, yes. Nietzsche had a similar thought. Saying yes to one thing means saying no to so many others. That constant decision-making can make you second-guess yourself, wondering if you picked the right yes.
And Sartre.
Sartre famously said, "We are condemned to be free, no escaping it. We are totally responsible for creating who we are through our choices. But often the roles we play in society, student, worker, parent, whatever, they don't feel like the real us."
Like wearing a mask.
Kind of. And when that role feels really different from the person you feel you could be or should be trying to become, That gap creates the feeling, this isn't really me. This isn't the life I was meant to create.
Makes sense. What about Simone de Beauvoir?
She added a really crucial dimension, especially thinking about women's experiences. She analyzed how society often sets up specific expectations and limitations, particularly for women, that restrict their freedom and choices.
So, societal structures could force you into a life that doesn't fit.
Exactly. It's not just about your internal choices, but also about the external barriers that limit what choices are even possible or feel acceptable, making that feeling of, this isn't the life I wanted, maybe even more likely if your aspirations don't match the prescribed roles.
So, philosophy connects this feeling very strongly to our freedom, the weight of choices, and the struggle to be authentic against social pressures.
Right. It sees it less as a problem to be solved and more as just part of the deal of being human and being free.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How does psychology look at this? Do they see it as like a phase?
Psychology definitely looks at the when and how, and research does show that this feeling or maybe regret about life choices can be particularly strong during certain periods. Adolescence is one.
Yeah, figuring things out.
And then again, often in midlife. That's where the idea of the midlife crisis comes in.
Ah, the classic. Is that a real thing, psychologically speaking?
Well, the term was coined by Elliot Jacques, and researchers like Daniel Levinson studied it. Levinson suggested that around, say, age 40, people often pause. They look at their life, their job, their family, what they've achieved, and compare it to the dreams they had when they were younger.
And if there's a big difference.
That's when the feeling can hit hard. Is this all there is? This isn't what I imagined. But it's important to say later research kind of refined this idea.
How so?
It showed that while many people do reflect and question things in midlife, it's not always a huge dramatic crisis. Often the dissatisfaction is more specific. Maybe it's about the job feeling stale or a relationship having problems rather than feeling like their entire life is wrong.
So, less of a total meltdown, more of a targeted review.
Often, yes, only a smaller number of people report what feels like a really severe crisis. But the questioning is common. Psychology also sees clear links between feeling chronically dissatisfied with your life and things like depression or anxiety.
It could be a symptom or maybe even contribute to it.
Both, potentially. And one really interesting idea from psychology is about how our thinking patterns affect this. Specifically, all or nothing thinking.
What's that?
It's when you see things in black and white. Like, if my life isn't absolutely perfect in every way, then it's a total failure. That kind of thinking makes any imperfection feel huge and can really amplify the feeling that your life isn't what you wanted.
Because nothing is ever perfect, right?
Exactly. So that mindset sets you up for disappointment. On the flip side, there's positive psychology. People like Martin Seligman, they focus on what makes life feel good.
Like happiness research.
Sort of. They look at things like flow, getting totally absorbed in an activity you enjoy, or the PERMA model. Positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, accomplishment. Finding ways to boost those areas can make life feel more satisfying, countering that this isn't it feeling.
So focusing on engagement and meaning can help.
It can be really helpful for many people, but there's a caveat too. Some critics point out that just focusing on your mindset, thinking positively, might not be enough if the reasons you feel dissatisfied are really big external problems, like not having enough money, facing discrimination, or just lacking basic opportunities. Positive thinking alone doesn't fix those systemic issues.
Right. So psychology offers tools for the inside, but we still need to consider the outside world.
It's definitely a balancing act.
Okay, let's talk more about that outside world. Societal expectations.
Yeah.
How much do they play into this?
Oh, hugely. Society gives us these life scripts, you could call them, often unspoken but powerful.
What do you mean by life script?
The expected path: finish school, get a good, stable job, probably get married, buy a house, have kids. That kind of sequence. It's presented as the normal or right way to live.
And if your life doesn't match that script,
then you can feel like you're doing something wrong, or you failed, even if you didn't actually want that exact path. Just being off script can trigger that feeling. This isn't the life I was supposed to have, or therefore, this isn't the life I wanted.
even if you chose differently on purpose.
Yes, because the pressure to conform can be really strong. Daniel Levinson, who studied life stages, noted that these scripts give us a map, but they can also feel really restrictive. Deviating can cause anxiety.
Does this vary between cultures?
Definitely. In some cultures, collectivist ones, fitting in with the group and following tradition is really important.
Yeah.
So being different can feel very isolating and wrong. But in more individualistic cultures, there might be more freedom to deviate, but then there's often this intense pressure to be like uniquely successful, to stand out. And if you feel just average, you haven't achieved something amazing, that can also lead to feeling dissatisfied.
So pressure to fit in, pressure to stand out,
Yeah.
both can cause problems.
It seems so, yeah. And think about young people today. Researchers talk about emerging adulthood, that period where people take longer to hit those traditional milestones, maybe staying in education longer, having less stable early jobs.
Right, things have changed.
So that period of feeling potentially off script might last longer for more people now,
Yeah.
possibly making that feeling of, is this right, more common or extended.
And that ties into social media too, doesn't it? Seeing everyone else's script.
Oh, absolutely. Social media is like a giant comparison machine. People usually post their highlights, right? The amazing vacation, the perfect looking relationship, the successful project.
The highlight reel, not the everyday reality.
Exactly. And when you're scrolling through that, it's so easy for your own normal, maybe kind of messy everyday life to feel, well, boring or inadequate in comparison.
The grass is always greener effect.
Totally. And studies have shown this connection using social media a lot, especially just passively looking, can increase feelings of envy, feeling like you're missing out, and general dissatisfaction with your own life. It constantly shows you an idealized version of what life could be.
Making your own reality feel less than.
But it's not all bad. Social media can also be a place where people do share struggles. You see hashtags like #LifeUnfiltered or people talking honestly about difficulties. That can actually make you feel less alone.
So it can connect people who feel the same way.
It can. And seeing stories of people who made changes, maybe switched careers or overcame something, that can be inspiring too. It's complicated. It can fuel the feeling, but also offer connection or inspiration.
Okay, let's talk about something very real and external. Money. Economic realities. How does that factor in?
Oh, it's fundamental. For so many people, the life they imagine, the life they want, requires a certain level of financial security. Buying a home, supporting a family, pursuing certain interests or education, these things cost money.
And if money is tight?
Then those possibilities shrink dramatically. If housing costs are sky high, if wages aren't keeping up, if jobs feel insecure, if you're burdened by student debt, achieving those traditional markers of a good life can feel completely out of reach.
Even if you've done everything right, like getting an education.
Especially then sometimes. Young adults today, even well-educated ones, often find it much harder to achieve the financial stability their parents might have had. That gap between effort and outcome directly fuels the feeling. I worked hard, I followed the rules, but this life, the one I can afford, isn't the one I expected or wanted.
It blocks off choices.
Very real choices. There's this concept of the precariat people in precarious, unstable work. If your job is insecure, how can you plan for the future? How can you save for a house or feel secure enough to start a family? Long-term goals feel impossible, making the life I wanted seem like a distant dream.
So economic insecurity is a major driver of life dissatisfaction.
It really is. And we also have to remember that things like systemic racism, gender inequality, class barriers, they mean these economic hurdles are much higher for some groups than for others. For them, this isn't the life I wanted isn't just personal, it's tied to systemic unfairness.
So the economy isn't just a background detail, it's actively shaping whether people feel their life matches their hopes.
Absolutely, it defines the realm of the possible for many.
We touched on mental health earlier. How do doctors or therapists view this feeling? Is it always seen as, say, depression?
It can be a sign of depression, especially something like persistent depressive disorder, where there's a long-term low mood and maybe feelings of hopelessness, or it could be related to an adjustment disorder, maybe difficulty coping after a big life change or loss.
Okay.
And therapies like CBT cognitive behavioral therapy or ACT acceptance and commitment therapy can be really helpful. CBT helps people challenge those negative thought patterns like the all or nothing thinking we mentioned.
Yeah.
ACT helps people clarify what's truly important to them, their values, and then commit to taking actions that align with those values, even when difficult feelings like regret or dissatisfaction are present. It's about moving forward meaningfully despite the feeling.
So therapy can help you understand what matters and act on it.
Exactly. But it's also important to remember what some philosophers suggested. This feeling isn't always an illness.
It can be just.
Yeah. It can be part of being human. Questioning your life, your choices, the meaning of it all. Some thinkers, like Carl Jaspers, saw this kind of existential questioning as a fundamental, even healthy part of grappling with our freedom and existence. It might just be a natural reflection point.
So the key is figuring out, is this a mental health issue needing treatment, or is it more of a natural phase of questioning and searching for meaning?
That's a really important distinction, yes. Getting the right kind of support depends on understanding the context and severity of the feeling.
This feeling sounds like it could be really painful. But can anything good come out of it? Can it actually lead to positive change?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, very often feeling this isn't the life I wanted is the catalyst for change. It's the wake-up call that something needs to shift.
The discomfort pushes you to do something.
Exactly. It forces you to pause and think, okay, if this isn't the life I want, then what do I want? What needs to change? It can be the start of a really positive transformation.
How do people make that happen?
Well, first, acknowledging the feeling instead of ignoring it. Then, doing that work of clarifying values, what really matters to you, separate from what society says. And then taking steps. Maybe not huge leaps at first. There's an idea called life design.
Life design.
Yeah, it treats your life like a creative project. You don't have to have the perfect answer right away. You can try small experiments, test things out, make gradual adjustments, talk to people doing things that interest you. Try a class. It's less overwhelming than thinking you have to change everything overnight.
More like prototyping your way to a better fit.
Exactly. And it helps to look at examples. Think of people who made big changes later in life. Julia Child started her cooking career in her late 30s. Vera Wang became a fashion designer at 40. Susan Boyle found fame in her late 40s. These stories show it's really not too late for a second act.
That's definitely encouraging.
It is. There's even research on something called post-traumatic growth. It shows that sometimes going through really difficult times, including grappling with deep dissatisfaction, can actually lead to people becoming more resilient, having a clearer sense of purpose, and appreciating life more afterwards.
So the struggle itself can lead to growth.
It can. The feeling might be painful, yes, but it doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the signal that you're ready to start creating a new story, one that feels more like your own.
So we've journeyed through history, philosophy, psychology, societal pressures, money, social media, all exploring this really common feeling, this isn't the life I wanted.
We've seen it's ancient, it's tied to our freedom and choices, shaped by our society and circumstances, and amplified by modern life in some ways.
But crucially, we've also seen it doesn't have to be a dead end. Acknowledging it can be incredibly powerful. It can be the first step towards reflection, clarifying what matters, and making changes big or small towards a life that feels more authentic and fulfilling.
It's less a sign of failure, perhaps, and more an invitation to engage more deeply with your own life.
A really important perspective. Thank you for exploring all of that with us.
My pleasure.
And thank you, our listeners, for joining this podcast from Quick Speak. We hope this discussion was helpful. Remember, this feeling is common, and understanding it might be the start of something positive for you. Please subscribe to Quick Speak, the English podcast, for more episodes like this one.
And don't forget to visit the website. The link is in the description. You'll find extra learning materials there, like vocabulary lists and exercises based on today's podcast, to help you continue practicing your English.
Thanks for listening.